This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today I'm figuratively heading up the M5 from my home in Devon, southwest England, to meet my guest, Gianpaolo Paglia, who's been involved in the world of wine for more than 25 years and who now lives and works in beautiful Shropshire. Gianpaolo is originally from Tuscany's coastal Maremma area, and for 2 decades he developed and created a very successful Maremma wine estate that produced the classic wines of the zone. He's no longer involved in that business, but is still working in wine from his home in England. Welcome, Gianpaolo. Thank you for being my guest this morning. It's a gorgeous day here in Devon. I hope the sun is shining with you up in Shropshire. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Mark. And yes, the weather is not bad today. It's dry, which is already a good result in UK. So earlier there was a bit of sun as well. Probably not enough to plant the vineyard right where I am, but there are vineyards around here actually.
Oh, good. Well, perhaps we'll talk of those vineyards just a little later. Let's turn first to your home area, Maremma. Can you tell our listeners, I like them to get a picture of this beautiful part of Italy, where it is and what it has to offer that's quite different from other parts of Tuscany?
Sure. Yeah, there is a bit of, I think, frustration for people from Maremma because obviously pretty much everybody knows Tuscany, and they all go to Tuscany or they want to go to Tuscany. You usually fly to Pisa, go around the area, which is beautiful, of course, and then they go to Florence, and maybe sometimes they go back to Siena, San Gimignano. So they just cut off that part of Maremma, part of Tuscany called Maremma, which is the southernmost part of Tuscany, which actually encompasses Lazio. So Maremma is a sort of 100 miles stretch of coastal area in Tuscany, and it's very peculiar, very different, much more wild and domesticated than inland Tuscany. It's got a completely different history because of its geography, because of where it is, but it's full of incredible, beautiful things to see. It's much more wild and natural than the rolling hillside of Chianti Classico. Of course, it's on the seaside, so it's a beautiful place to go. If you like swimming or go on the beach or sun tanning, full of beautiful little villages on the coasts and also inland on the hillside. Had a kind of troubled history because of malaria in the past, until probably 150 to 100 years ago, and was full of marshes. In a way, it reminds me a lot of the Camargue in southern France. It's very similar under a lot of point of views.
Okay, so a coastal area that is less visited, and you say it's bordering Lazio, so visitors could equally fly to Rome and drive up to Maremma as easily as down from Pisa.
Absolutely, and in fact, it is a very touristic area, especially from people from Rome. It is considered like the good place to go from Roman people. They want to go in a nearby. An hour and a half from home, but in a much beautiful setting, and full of, as I say, beautiful things, beautiful wines and food, and beautiful coastal villages. So it's very popular. It's just that it's not so much known by people, foreigners. But it is very popular in Italy.
And it has a very long and ancient history linked to wine. This was a center of Etruscan civilization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, wine was always grown, and vineyards were always grown in the area. And Etruscan people were famous to do, and enjoy wines. And then, of course, also the Romans. Also, had in the course of the history, when Italy was fragmented in little different states for about 200 years, there was a state which was like an enclave of Spanish crown in that part of area. So from 1550 to 1720, something like that. That place was actually Spanish territory. So there is a lot of also in terms of wine that has been taken from that heritage, and they change a lot of the architecture. There are beautiful Spanish architecture around in some places, especially the place where I was born, Orbetello, Montergentario. But also, it's funny to see that one of the most important local varieties, and I'm just getting straight into wine now here, it's called Alicante. So already the names give you an idea of Spanish provenance. But Alicante is nothing else than Grenache or Garnacha. So that is 100%, part of the Spanish heritage. They must have brought Alicante because that's really something special in Tuscany. You might find it somewhere else, but that is really very, very much in the old vineyards everywhere in Maremma, and it's very adapted to Mediterranean climate, as well know. It grows very well, and I think it forms a very beautiful complement to Sangiovese, to make very, 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 very unique wines, different from other parts of Tuscany, but very, very specific, very, very terroir driven, and also, using this heritage. And I think it's something that people have started to explore in recent years, but not as much as probably should deserve.
Well, that's really interesting. Of course, Sardinia during that time would have been under the Spanish as well, wouldn't it?
Exactly, and they also have Grenache there, as you know.
Yes, the Canonau. Yeah.
Canonau. So it's all part of that, sort of, Spanish, influence and domination in the Mediterranean around those years.
Now, interestingly, Gianpaolo, last night in anticipation of speaking with you today, I opened a bottle of a wine of one of your wines, a beautiful wine, Capatosta, 2006. Drinking in beautifully, really, really good condition. And I was struck by the color. The color was still quite dark. And I'm wondering if it's that bit of Alicante that's adding to the Sangiovese Morellino.
Yeah, I mean it's Alicante that actually should have the opposite effect because very pale variety. But what we have there is also another very important variety called Ciliegolo, and Ciliegolo is also kind of more obscure origin, even though it is probably very likely one of the parents or an offspring of Sangiovese, and that gives a very bright, ruby, intense color, and that's probably one of the reasons why. Also, Sangiovese, it isn't known for dark color, but that depends a lot from the clones and the place where it is grown. So you can have dark color Sangiovese in this part of Tuscany. And then the ripeness there is much more intense than inland, than in the Chianti area, for example. But you can see, also in many Sangiovese from Montalcino, sometimes you find intensities of color that aren't found in 50 miles inland in the Chianti Classico area.
Well, let's talk about the Maremma version of Sangiovese, the Morellino. What does that have that differs from some of the other Sangiovese biotypes?
Well, Morellino is the local name of the wine, and also the local name of the Sangiovese. The clones of Sangiovese they find in the vineyards, are always, as in many cases, mixed provenance, and in my opinion, the wine really there is more, intended as a blend. Not just Sangiovese, but also, as I say, Ciliegolo and Alicante, but also some other local varieties you can find there. But the point is, it's not so much a difference in terms of clonal diversity. It's more to do with the condition, with the climatic conditions. We're much closer to the seaside. Although Morellino Scansano is quite a pretty large area, going from the seaside, from sea level to 500 meters above the sea level inland, stretching, across 3 or 4 communes. But, the conditions in that side of Tuscany, of course, is warmer, much warmer than inland. It's much drier and it's much sunnier, and you're very close to the seaside. It's similar to Bulgari on that respect, but with much more variation in terms of altitudes and soils. So what do you have here in the end? The result of very, very ripe, full-bodied, big wines that sometimes need to be tamed down a little bit, to be kind of reined, or down to make them more balanced. Otherwise, you would easily have very alcoholic wines, sometimes unbalanced wines. But if you do it properly, you have beautiful wines that very, very true to the terroir. To me, the example I always made, and for some people that resonates probably and becomes a bit more understandable. It's the difference between a Northern Rhone, where you have 100% Syrah wines, powerful, but also much more vertical, and then you compare them to the southern part of the Rhone in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, for example. So to me, Morellino is the Châteauneuf-du-Pape of Tuscany, whereas the Northern Rhone is, if you want, from Montalcino to inland in Tuscany. So this is like a difference, I think for the same, pretty much for the same reasons, because as you go towards the seaside, things change, and you probably need to incorporate into these wines a blend of different varieties to find harmony and balance. So
to create that balance, yeah.
Yeah, and I think still there will still be wines for people that love that kind of ripeness, which is fine. I think sometimes you want a wine with different styles and different characters depending on what your mood is, what you're eating, what you drink, what you want to do. So there is a space for those wines, and I think if you want to become true to the terroir, you can make beautiful wines.
Yeah, and increasingly some very good white wines being made, as well as Rosato wines. I've had some very good Maremma Rosatos.
Yeah, the Vermentino for sure is one of the the varieties that's been very successful in the coastal part of Tuscany. It gives a lot of saltiness, a nice body, nice acidity, simple maybe, but very, very refreshing and crisp, and again with a lot of Mediterranean characters. I think those wines are really wines that you want to drink especially when you're there, like when you go in a coastal area. You really enjoy those wines made in these places because they have those characteristics that marry them beautifully with the food, the saltiness, the character.
Yes. Well, let's talk about some of the foods of the Maremma then. We do have that mix of the coast and, as you say, the more rugged interior. You've got that in the cuisine as well.
Absolutely. It's a seaside. Maremma is on the sea. So, of course, a lot of, fishermen villages. So seafood is a very important part of it. And, you can imagine everything, you can find beautiful, fish like orata or lobsters and shrimps and octopus and all really endless possibilities there. But also all the inland side where there's one meat probably, which is the real flagship of Maremma, which is cinghiale, wild boar, and and you can have a lot of combinations with pasta, fresh pasta like tortelli maremmani. They're usually much bigger than the other kind of tortelli. If for 4 or 5 of them would be enough to fill you up, and they usually come with a beautiful cinghiale ragu, and you have, like in perhaps everywhere in Italy, which is probably the most distinguished part of Italian cuisine, you have a lot of simple places where you can find these really basic staples of Italian cuisine or local cuisine, and you don't need to be in any sophisticated restaurant or setting. You really enjoy stopping by this trattoria or restaurants on these little villages, and you'll always be sure to find these simple but really, really, really speaking of the terroir, of the territorio dishes. And of course there are also beautiful and renowned Michelin star restaurants, very sophisticated restaurants in these little villages on the hills, and also on the seaside. We've been blessed by having the Pelican Hotel since 1960s, which has seen all the jet set from Hollywood and rock stars, and still does. It's very, very private location, and it's very simple as well. It's not luxurious in any architectural or sophistication of interior design, but it is classic, and it makes you feel at home, and the food has always been fantastic there. So there is everything. There are simple places you can go enjoy with the 20 euros and have a very rewarding meal. And there are very high sophisticated haute cuisine where you can find and satisfy yourself if you want.
Well, I think you've painted a very enticing picture of this small corner of Tuscany that is less well known, and I think it is somewhere that people should definitely consider visiting for all of those reasons: the food, the wine, but also that mix of inland and seaside, and it's a very appealing area.
Also, the weather is often there. It's often glorious there, and if you can, I would recommend to go outside. The highest season, which is July and August. But if you can go in June, in September, October, but even now, it's even in January sometimes. There are these beautiful, bright, sunny days. Fantastic. Just go there and you can't believe you are in winter.
Well, let's turn briefly then to your adopted home, England. You've been in England for how many years?
Well, on and off. On and off. Family's been here since 2009. I've got 3 kids. My wife is English, and I've been commuting until 2015, and then from 2015, I'm more stable here. And my wife is from the Midlands, so that's where we are.
My wife is from the Midlands as well. That's why I'm that's why I'm in England. Yeah. So over this long period, you, like me, have seen a huge evolution of food and local drinks, including the rise of pretty good English and Welsh wines, which are by no means no longer a joke.
No, they're not. They're not. And I've been also involved in many blind tastings in the master wine course, and with master wines, and with people of very high qualifications. And I can tell your listener that in many cases it's very difficult to pull them apart from good quality champagne. When you drink a blind tasting, good quality English sparkling wines, they're head to head with good quality champagnes. They lack that depth and complexity of the very top cuvée, of course. But that's also because there is no enough history, there's not enough reserve wines here, just to mention one thing. But that, I'm sure that will come as well. But on the high quality non-vintage cuvée champagne, UK, the best UK sparkling wines have nothing to go amiss.
Yeah, I agree with you. What would you say is the best quality that English wines at best have? How would you characterize English wines to distinguish, their real uniqueness?
Yeah, I mean, in of course, the acidity sometimes is much more, spiky and refreshing, but also, they have an orchard fruit quality that sometimes is more difficult to find in champagnes. If this is one of the things that can distinguish them, but it's very difficult to find the differences. But to me, this is probably the characteristics.
Yes, I would agree that just in the way that a good English apple is, in my opinion, one of the best apples you can eat anywhere, with that blend of sharp fruity acidity and then the ripeness, and that can happen now increasingly with English wines. So
It can only get better, and it can only get better because as I say, people building reserve wines there. They're becoming more skilled to make wines, but also the vineyards are becoming more mature. People becoming more experienced in the vineyards as well. So there's a bright future, I think. Also, global warming is a fact, but apart from that, there's a bright future for the wine industry. in general.
Yes, I think so too. And it's also, you've been talking about how the wines of Maremma pair so well and naturally with the foods of the region. And I'm finding increasingly as well that, we want to drink the local wines when we're in England too. Where I live, for example, we have some very, very good still white wines that pair beautifully with the Lime Bay crab and the fish.
Absolutely. Don't discard Bacchus. Bacchus is probably the English white variety for making still wines. And some people, especially in your corner, I think, have proven that can be a really interesting wine when it's done properly. So yeah, there are quite a few things that English wines can talk about, I think.
And you're actually living in a very strong food region. Shropshire is known for its local food, strong, good producers, and
yeah, it's very rural. It's a rural part of UK, like many other many parts in especially inland, in the Midlands as well. And so a lot of farming there, and as a result, a lot of good ingredients to make very good food and good good cuisine. Yes, it's and beer, of course. Don't forget the beer on the side. I'm not a very big fan of cider, but I like my beer.
Yeah, actually, we have some very good West Country ciders where I am down here in Devon.
Well, I should come and taste sometime.
Yeah, come down and we'll have a pint or two of different ciders. So I know you're involved in different activities in wine with Liv-ex and Simonit Sirch. Do you miss not having your own wine estate? What do you miss most about not making your own wines?
I mean, it's a beautiful job. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be able to go in the vineyards. It's very complex, if you think, thing to do, growing your things, then transform it into wine, then, selling them into the market. It can be sometimes overwhelming because, it takes many years to get established. But what I miss the most probably is that being in the vineyards. That's why I'm doing something with Simonit Sirch, because that allows me from time to time to be involved in inside the vineyards, which is probably, I think, overall the thing that I miss the most.
Yes, I can understand that. It's more than a job. It really is an entirely all-encompassing way of life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, Gianpaolo, it's been great catching up with you again. You have such a knowledge of wine and you speak so beautifully about your region. So I'm really glad we've been able to meet up again. I still have a couple of cases of your wines in my cellar, which I'm enjoying drinking, and I will continue to enjoy drinking them and thinking of even more vividly of Maremma now that we've had this chat. So I wish you well with your work in wine, and I look forward to meeting up maybe down here in Devon sometime soon.
I'm sure we will. And thank you very much for reaching out and give me the chance to to revive an old friendship, and also to talk about my region, which is always a special place to me.
Great, thank you very much, and see you soon.
Bye to all.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to italianwinepodcast.com.